Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the council meeting. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence. If I can call Mr. Hugh Evans, please.
Thank you, presiding member. The apologies are from Councillor Mike Day, Kevin Griffiths and Will Thomas. Oh, sorry, and Bev Hopkins as well, apologies.
We'll put it in for Wendy as well. Okay.
Kerry
Hennigan. Sorry?
Erica Kirchner.
Okay. The next we have the minutes of the. Oh, sorry, I jumped one out. Sorry. With the next one is disclosures of personal and prejudicial interests. Over to Tracy Moran.
Thank you, presiding member. I circulated my email last night. I'll take a couple of block declarations. Firstly, in relation to agenda item 10, which is a statement of accounts. Some members will have been appointed to the outside bodies that are referenced in the statement of accounts from page 121 onwards. They are namely the Port Health Authority, the Fire Authority, the National Waterfront Museum, Wales National Pool and the Community Energy and Enterprise Scheme. So if you've been appointed to any of those bodies, can I suggest that you declare a personal interest? I will take a block declaration now. So it's personal interest only if you've been appointed to those bodies mentioned in the statement of accounts. I'll just wait a few seconds for the Dem Services. Oh yeah, can I remind you all please to fill the form in? Okay. And then moving on in relation to agenda item 11, which is the school admission arrangements 24-25. I don't think you have an interest solely on the basis that you are a school governor, but you may have a wellbeing interest under paragraph 10(2)(c) of the code if you have children or possibly grandchildren who may be directly impacted by the admission arrangements for the year 24-25. So again, I don't know whether there are any councillors who may wish to declare an interest, but I'll take a block declaration, personal interest only. Okay, thank you. And again, I'd remind you to fill in the form. And then finally, agenda item 14, nomination of Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor 23-24. You will not have an interest simply because you work alongside the nominees. However, you will have a personal and prejudicial interest if you are either a nominee or you have a close personal association of the nominee, and that is a prejudicial interest if you think it may cloud your voting on the item. In which case, if you think you have a personal and prejudicial interest, you should leave the meeting and we'll call you back in. Just to give you some further advice on what a close personal associate is, because I've had a number of questions around this. So the Ombudsman has said that a personal interest may arise where you or a close personal associate may have some link to a matter under discussion. These interests become prejudicial where an informed independent observer could reasonably conclude that the interest is likely to influence your vote. And the PSO guidance does set out who constitutes a close personal associate, and it does not include casual acquaintances or people you come into contact with through your role as a member or your work in the community. So the Ombudsman does give an example. I think you might find this quite helpful, is that being a member of the same golf club does not constitute a close personal association, but having that person as a weekly golf partner might do so. So just going back to the block declaration, I will take a block declaration for agenda item 14, personal interest only. Can you please raise your hands? Okay. Okay, thank you. And I'll open it up now to any other declarations of interest.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Personal and prejudicial interest in item 14.
Councillor Thomas.
Personal prejudicial interest in item 14, and I will leave the meeting.
Councillor Philpott, sorry.
Personal interest only in item 14, only in as much that the perception is that I mentioned in the body of the report.
Francesca O'Brien.
Thank you, Chair. In the councillors' questions, number 1 and number 11, personal prejudicial, and I'll leave the room.
It's Swansea, is it?
And likewise for my.
Ditto, repeato.
Yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
I have personal and prejudicial interest in public question time and council questions relating to the airport.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Okay. Go on to item 3 then, and that's to approve and sign the minutes of the previous meetings as a correct record. And I'll go through them page by page. So it's page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11, page 12, and page 13. Okay, for an agreement? Okay, thank you. The next item is the written responses to questions asked at the last ordinary meeting of council, and they are on pages 14 and 15. Then we have the announcements of the presiding member. I've got a couple of announcements. Unfortunately, we started with condolences, and it's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of Councillor Hazel Morris. Hazel represented the Penderi ward on the City and County of Swansea from the 1st of May 2008 to the 2nd of March 2023. I'd like to call on the leader, please, because he'd like to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Member. Yes, many members in the Chamber will have known Hazel for many years. And as you say, Councillor Morris was elected on the 1st of May 2008 and represented the ward of Penderi for nearly 16 years up until her passing just a few weeks ago. Hazel was a extremely hard-working, dedicated local councillor for the ward of Penderi, working alongside Councillor Hennigan and Councillor Burtonshaw originally, and then Councillor Hennigan and Councillor Kirchner in recent years. Councillor Morris was a regular at the Penland Club, where she also held her surgeries, the last surgery being just a few weeks before she passed away, even though she was extremely ill at the time. Many of you will know Hazel battled for a long time against serious illness for a number of years, but that didn't stop her discharging her duties, and she continued to work in this authority, turn up for meetings, even though her personal struggles were significant. And of course, she was the Vice Chair of the General Licensing Committee and also the Statutory Licensing Committee, supporting Councillor Matthews as Chair. For those who spent any time with Hazel will know that she had an absolutely wicked sense of humour and a fire that quite belayed her quiet voice and small stature. She loved Penderi and its people, and we will all hugely miss her. She will also be missed, I'm sure, by her family, friends and community. She was a keen gardener and spent many months during the summer months tending to her garden, which I know she loved very much. I, along with Councillor Mandy Evans and Councillor Penny Matthews, had the privilege of supporting Hazel through her final months as she struggled with her illness. And even though she was in pain for many hours of that time, and she was very unwell, she never lost her compassion, her sense of duty, or her sense of humour. And she will be sadly missed by all of us. And with the thoughts, I'm sure, of everyone in this chamber, I offer her family our deepest and most sincere condolences.
Leader, did you want to mention the other gentleman as well first, or?
To that now. Also, it was with deep sadness that we learnt of the death of Mr. Brian Davis following the tragic explosion that took place in Morriston Ward. Chair, I'll obviously offer on behalf of the Chamber our condolences to Mr. Davis's family, but I'd like to say a bit more in my announcements around the actual incident itself.
Councillor Hollis, you put your hand up.
Thank you, Presiding Member. As for Councillor Hazel Morris, a very, very nice lady who was always pleasant, always willing to have a chat, and I thought she was a really nice person, and she will be sadly missed, and she'll be sadly missed by everybody that's known her and met her, and our condolences have got to come from everyone in the council.
Paxton Hood-William.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Officer. I'd like to add my comments to what's already been said. Councillor Morris was a regular, was a member of the Child and Family Services Scrutiny Performance Panel. We worked together a lot in that area. She was very committed to that, and she will be really missed. And our condolences as well.
I have one other announcement as well, and that's with sadness that I refer to the recent death of former councillor June Evans. June represented the Llansamlet ward on Swansea City Council from the 21st of October 1993 to the 31st of March 1996, and the City and County of Swansea from the 4th of May 1995 to the 3rd of May 2012. So can I ask you all to stand for a minute's silence, please? Okay, thank you. My next announcement is a retirement. As many of you will be aware that Karen Thomas, aka Zippy, retires tomorrow, having served 40 years with the council. Karen dedicated her career to supporting councillors, so can I pass on everybody's thanks to Karen for a number of years as she's served with us. And I'd also like to thank all the other officers that will be retired in the coming weeks and months for their service and dedication to the council. The next item is thanks to the Test, Trace and Protect teams. The Welsh Government has recently thanked everyone involved in the TTP teams for their exceptional hard work and commitment throughout the COVID-19 pandemic. On behalf of the Council, I would like to add our thanks to the TTP teams for their professionalism and work during such a difficult period. The next item, can I remind all members of the public that this meeting is being broadcast? It's been broadcast live. Care must be taken to avoid any abusive or defamatory comments against officers, councillors, or any other members of the public. And can I please remind you to remain seated when speaking in the council chamber? This makes it easier for people to hear and to see you. The next item is an amendment. It's corrections to the council summons. Sorry, I thought somebody spoke then. It's items 19 and 20 on the notice of motion, and the name of myself, Councillor Jan Curtis, should be removed from both notices of a motion. And that's all the end of my announcements. Thank you. I'd now like to call on the Leader of the Council for his announcements. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Presiding Member. My first announcement is just to welcome the successful outcome for the bid for the South West Wales region for the Celtic Freeport. That will see some £26 million of investment come to support the establishment of free ports in the South West Wales region. The bid was led by Neath Talbot and Pembrokeshire Council, as they have two deep water ports. Swansea's port obviously already has plans to be the home of the tidal lagoon, which obviously we still expect a private sector proposal to come forward later this year on that port, but it is linked to that focus on new green energy technologies. So the Celtic Freeport bid and the tidal lagoon are consistent in terms of our approach to try and make the South West Wales region a national leader in green technologies. I'd also like to commemorate the 100th anniversary of Cymru Caerw Primary School. I was very pleased to attend the reception yesterday with what I wrongly described as my old teachers. They quite rightly put me in my place and told me they're not my old teachers, they're my teachers. But it was really great to catch up with people who I'd been in school with, and to see the wonderful children of Cymru Cairo performing both in assembly and in the concert yesterday. And again, from myself and the other Morriston members, very proud of the pupils in our schools. Also, just to share with Council, we learnt again today formally that we are nominated for Council of the Year in the MJ Awards, and we've submitted our presentation, and hopefully after we came runner-up last year, we will hopefully take the main prize this year. So again, can I just thank all the officers and staff for the efforts that they do on a daily basis to deliver services, which allows us to be recognised for the work that the council does. And then finally, Chair, if I can just return to the Morriston explosion. And I just wanted to pay tribute to all those that responded so brilliantly to that tragic event. As I said, terrible loss of life for one of our residents, Mr. Davis, but it could have been so much worse. And the response by our colleagues in the police, the fire service, and specifically our council housing and highways teams, who work tirelessly to make the area safe, to support families into temporary accommodation, and then obviously to get them back in their homes as soon as it was safe to do so. I'd also like to pay tribute to Craig Gimlett and all of the team working with the emergency response. They really did go over and beyond what was expected of them, and I think we should be rightly proud of everything that the people working in the council departments and our partner organisations did. And finally, Chair, I'd also like to thank the community of Morriston. We know they are a brilliantly tight community and a brilliantly generous community, and that's what they proved to be again on this occasion. We've seen over £14,000 has been raised by the people of Morriston for donations. And again, that has been added to by people in communities across Swansea, businesses and other organisations, as well as local schools. And just to remind everybody that choirs from the Morriston area are coming together for a charity concert in Tabernacle on Wednesday, April the 5th at 7 p.m. to raise money for the appeal. And I would encourage everybody, if they can, to attend that event. Finally, just to say also a very special thank you to Morriston Football Club and Morriston Memorial Hall, who both went out of their way to make their facilities available to look after residents whilst we were looking for places to house them and to provide them safe places to sleep while their properties were being made safe. So thank you all for your work and your response. It's really been a very proud moment for Swansea in terms of how we've dealt with the terrible disaster that took place in Morriston.
Okay, thank you, Leader. We now move on to the public questions. We have 10 minutes. We have a number of questions. I will call on each person individually, but you will have one response at the end from the Councillor David Hopkins. Okay, so if I can call on the first person, please, and that's Mr. Gerald Williams.
Excuse me. Wait a second. Thank you. Regarding Swansea Airport, given that the licence of Swansea Airport was suspended again with multiple major failures just 4 weeks after the Estates Department and Councillor David Hopkins publicly stated that there had been improvements and that the leaseholder was largely compliant with his lease, will the council admit the gross failure of the Estates Department to manage the lease, and that the statement made to the Cabinet by Councillor Hopkins was miserably incorrect and had no factual evidence to support his claim? On that basis, will the council now do the sensible thing and offer an open tender to get the best value for the taxpayers of Swansea, especially with the permanent withdrawal of the lease looking imminent? And secondly, should the licence be revoked, What will the Cabinet be doing to investigate the gross failure of the Estates Department for the lack of action and oversight in protecting the assets of Swansea for the last decade?
Is that the end of your questions?
That
Okay,
is.
okay, the next gentleman is Mr. Bob Oliver.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Three questions. Thank you for giving me time to make to take the first three of the 34 that stand in my name today. Question one, does the leader accept that the reputation of the council has been brought into public disrepute by its failure to manage the lease for Swansea Airport effectively? Would he accept that the council decision to overlook evidence of wholesale breaches of the lease and grant a new one has further damaged the council's reputation? Would he also accept that refusing to explain or justify that decision has the appearance of an attempt to obstruct democratic scrutiny in order to avoid further reputational damage? And would the leader agree with the conclusions of Baroness Nuala Alone, chair of the Daniel Morgan inquiry that reported in 2021 that, and I quote, concealing or denying failings for the sake of an organisation's public image is dishonesty on the part of the organisation for reputational benefit and constitutes a form of institutional corruption? Question two. What does the leader of the council have to say to the ratepayers of Swansea who are here in the room today? We have seen with our own eyes that millions of pounds worth of capital assets, the property of the people of Swansea, have been loaned to the tenant at the airport by the council and then lost in direct contravention of the terms of the lease. We've seen with our own eyes the state of disrepair the airport has been brought to in direct contravention of the terms of the lease. And in January, we saw the Cabinet make a flawed and irrational decision based on a report from the Cabinet Member for Corporate Services and Development, which stated, in apparent denial of the evidence, that the tenant complied with the lease and should be given a new one. What does the leader have to say to the people of Swansea when they ask, why didn't you just do your job, enforce the terms of the lease and protect our assets? And how are you going to get our money back? And what will the council say to us when the court of public opinion judges the council to have been utterly negligent in its stewardship of public assets and says to the council, shame on you? The report presented to the Cabinet on 19th January by the Cabinet Member for Corporate Services and Development has subsequently been shown to contain material deficiencies, omissions and inaccuracies. Given that the Cabinet decision to renew the lease for the airport was based on that document, does the leader accept that the decision displayed both procedural unfairness, because the Cabinet failed to consider relevant information before coming to its decision, and was unreasonable because no rational person acting reasonably on publicly available evidence would have made the same decision? And does he agree it is in the public interest to submit that decision to independent review and to publish the findings? Thank you, Madam Presiding Member.
Can I call on Mr. Alan Bailey? I believe you're on Teams, Mr. Bailey.
Yes. Thank you for allowing me to ask my question. My questions are a follow-on from the question I asked at the Cabinet meeting on the 19th of January concerning opening hours of Swansea Airport. The answer I received referred to independent legal advice in a closed report. If this closed report was obtained using public money, why is the advice not available to the public? Swansea Airport Limited have shown they are unfit to manage an airfield as the CAA has suspended the airport licence. Since the 19th of January, I have been twice to the airfield to fly one of Cambrian Flying Club's aircraft. On each occasion, poor management by SAL interfered with my plans. No fuel in the rescue vehicle, no fuel available for aircraft due to no trained operators, poor maintenance of the runway and taxiways, and the limited open hours, only 5 days a week. How can the council consider even renewing the lease with SAL? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. The next gentleman is Barry Gwinnett, and I believe you're on Teams as well. Are you there, Mr. Gwinnett? Okay, there's no response, so I'm going to go on to the next one, and that is Mr. Gary Waters. Please, I believe you're physically present.
Right, thank you. As your corporate plan points out, Swansea is one of the most ecological diverse counties in the UK, with a unique variety of habitats and a wonderful range of parks, etc. Why then, given your concern for the environment and the biodiversity that are under threat, did the council choose to ignore the detailed proposals put to you to develop Swansea Airport in an eco-friendly and biodiverse way, and propose to renew the lease with a company that over a decade or more have proven to have no interest in any such ambition? Question 2. One of the stated aims of your corporate plan is to support individuals and businesses through regeneration, cultural asset and transport connectivity. Has the authority already failed the community of Swansea by allowing the airport to degrade to such an extent that the Civil Aviation Authority no longer considers it to be of a standard compatible with commercial flight operations? And my third question. Your corporate plan states that you want everyone to have access to, understand, appreciate and benefit from Swansea's outstanding natural environment and to play their part in looking after and enhancing it, resulting in a healthier, greener and more prosperous Swansea. The question is then, why, given an alternative proposal to develop Swansea Airport as a community asset working towards a greener and more sustainable future, did the council choose to stick with a company which has overseen the deterioration of the airport to what can only be considered a state of dereliction? Thank you.
Mr. Waters. The next gentleman is Ralph Bettany. I believe you're on Teams, Mr. Bettany.
Thank you, Chair. My question is this. Does the council have a contingency plan for the operation of the airport if the Civil Aviation Authority licence is permanently withdrawn, as appears likely now, triggering the termination of the lease under clause 4.31?
Is that end of your question, Mr. Bettany? Yes?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll call on the leader for the response. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to place on record, I have obviously been asked part of the questions that were asked in that response. Myself and Cabinet members have had clear legal advice from the legal officer, and therefore Councillor Hopkins, as the lead for this item, will give a response on behalf of Cabinet to those questions.
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Hopkins.
Yeah, can I thank the petitioner, the questions I received this evening. I must say, look, can I just assure you, we haven't just sat back, right? We have been very proactive as an authority, trying to work as much as we possibly can. The truth of the matter is, we have still got a legal lease with a leaseholder. It is very difficult for us to go public, to have public discussions, particularly when we've got legal challenges in place. All I can assure you, the evidence that was put before us on the 19th, we all went in with a balanced mind. We've had many reports to date. This was not the only report that we've had on the airport and the condition of the airport. From the first time the leaseholder went into disrepair, particularly and lost the CAA license some time ago, we've worked proactively with the leaseholder to ensure that the airport stayed open for as long as it possibly can. Our ambition is to continue that the airport continues to remain open. The problem we got, I am legally tied to what I can give you. The only commitment and what I can say is that we will have further reports on the airport. There are legal officers, and I must put on record before I will forget, I must put on thanks. Although my officers have been brought into question here tonight, I've got the greatest faith in both Alex O'Brien and Jeff Bacon for the work they've done. What I would say, during these difficult times, they have worked to ensure the airport remained open on every possible occasion. They have lived up to the responsibilities to ensure safety and maintain health and safety meetings to try to change that. Now, I'm not going to say too much more, other than I do sympathise. I know the situation you're in. We will have further reports at the airport. There will be further reports to come with a list of options. I cannot give no more assurance at this particular time. I get your frustration, but can I assure you, when we made that decision on the 19th, that was with full legal advice that was given to us, and we balanced that and looked at that evidence at that particular time. That evidence did not come from our own officers. That evidence come from Gellard's, an independent King's Counsel who actually give us that evidence. So I obviously your questions are in depth. I'm not going to give you an answer to every single one of them. Only a commitment to look, we are in this position. Is it the best? Probably not. And I perhaps am going a little bit too far at the moment, but I will assure you that we will look and do what we can going forward. The CAA license is suspended at the moment. I don't know what, I believe there are negotiations ongoing with the leasehold at this particular time. We'll have to wait to see what comes of that. We've got to give reasonable time, otherwise we will be challenged at that time. Now, when you talk about an alternative, there was alternative options given to us. The legal advice was quite clear at the time that we had to do and take that legal advice. So all I can assure you, there will be further meetings. Sorry, there will be a further report to cabinet meeting, and I will obviously we'll wait to see what that brings. But I do share your frustration, I must say, and I don't want to legally prejudice myself any further than that at this particular time. So,
Thank you, Councillor Hopkins. We move on then to item 8, and that's the corporate plan for 23-28. Can I call on Councillor David Hopkins, please?
yes, thanks, Presiding Member. Let me just get my paperwork, which is, sorry. Where's my bracelet? Yeah, thanks, Presiding Member. In presenting this report, what I would like to do is bring your attention to paragraph 1 of the report that describes the legal requirements around the development of the plan under the Wellbeing of Future Generations Act. The Act thus requires the public bodies of the Council to set its wellbeing objectives and the steps achieved in them in order to improve our wellbeing in our local area. Paragraph 2 on the next page describes the methodology and to be employed and developed in the plan, as well as the guidelines that would apply during the development, including the need to incorporate the policy documents in the plan, ensuring everything is fully funded. The corporate plan is evidence-based with a wide range of evidence and considerations when delivering the plan, including the results of consultation, which is attached in the appendix of the report. Paragraph 3 on page 17 describes the main challenges that have been made to the plan. Changes, sorry. We also have a new version of the plan to look ahead into 2028. Tackling poverty is the objective, becoming the tackling poverty, enabling communities objectives, which will recognise the strength-based approach which we've all seen in Swansea in tackling poverty. And the transformation of future generations objective named the transformation financial resilience is reflected now, and the council become more sustainable in a time of increasing demand on rising prices. Paragraph 4 describes the structure of the plan and its context. Well, I wouldn't go any further into the report, but obviously this is will be key to our PIs going forward, and would like to move the report.
Can I have a seconder first, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Member. It's disappointing, really, in reading this. There are a couple of things in it, and regards the first thing, I think it says about the thriving city centre. It doesn't mention in the covering report with regards to the districts, the Morristons, the Skettys, the Gassignans and what have you. And I think that should be put in as part of the covering report. The other thing I think that we need to consider is the consultation. It states that we had 78 responses. That's 3 more than all the councillors in this chamber. You know, we really have got to consider how we do our consultation in the future. The actual report, it's a draft report. You know, we are looking for questions to be asked about it and to be considered and what have you. But when we have, and it's used percentages, so the percentage of people that responded to this from the citizens of Swansea is 0.0238. There's a few more figures after that. I can't remember, I all know. But anyway, as a percentage of 238,000 people, that can't be right, can it? We are basing all this plan, what we spend, how we operate, on 78 people on responses. We have to do better than that. And I suggest that whilst this is a draft report, whilst we have now got time to consider it, that we really now think about how we go out and get consultation on this. It would be far easier if you asked every councillor here to ask their neighbours about it, because you then get far more than 78. Thank you, Presiding Member.
Councillor Rice.
Thank you, Chair. I've got a couple of questions which relate to transforming our economy and infrastructure, which are obviously, I think all of us in the chamber would agree is a key area. First one really is, will the council cabinet members commit to looking seriously this time at the idea of an investment zone, which is open to at least one Welsh investment zone going forward? I know what the leader stated about free ports, and I knew my views there about going after that. The second thing that I think is really important to note as well is we mentioned in the economy section as well about the importance of the shared prosperity fund. And I do think it's a very important funding, but is there a way in which we can plan forward from now to make it much easier to apply? If you look at the shared prosperity fund application form, it has over 1,000 questions or data points. So I think that's something that's worth looking at. And the final one is key to any form of economy is transport. And I think if you asked anybody for an open question about what needs to improve as a corporate plan, they'd probably say the state of Swansea's roads and the potholes in them at the moment. There seems to be a lot of memes and jokes going around social media about it. I know that we've got a commitment which the administration said that they're going to put into roads. Can we just have a little bit more information about how we're planning to deliver that?
Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you, Presiding Member. In days gone by, I had the pleasure of also presenting the corporate plan, and I was criticised for the size of it, and unfortunately we seem to be here again. I note it does say it's a high-level document, but actually this is meant for the people of Swansea, and as Councillor Holly has just said, when you went out to consultation you had very few people coming back over the consultation. It's too big, it isn't user-friendly, and Appendix A, which is the plan, is 45 pages, a lot of repetition. When you go to Appendix B, is somewhere in the region of 99 pages. When you actually sort of agree it tonight, it's obviously going to be online. I'm assuming there are going to be links to the appendices and not actually the whole document put so that people they just can't read. I mean, I've been reading them for years and years and I found it difficult. I do appreciate, Cabinet Member, you are governed by certain things you've got to put in it, but I do think we need to look in future about streamlining it or doing a user-friendly one, like almost an executive summary, for want of a better terminology, and then put the rest of it somewhere else. But I do appreciate how difficult it is.
Councillor Sam Bennett, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I appreciate this is a draft report, but could the Cabinet Member outline what 3.9.4 means for the benefit of members, as well as 3.8.4? Both of these say about 20% neither agree nor disagree, but don't give us any detail of what the other 70 to 80% of people think.
Councillor Sheriff Hutton.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I was a little bit sad, I've got to be honest, when I read the results of the consultation, because it's inconclusive, isn't it? You know, it was done online, which means that anybody who is not able to go online, the elderly, those without IT experience, basically the vulnerable people in our society didn't really get a chance to say what they thought about the plan. And for many of the services that we provide, it is those vulnerable people that are having those services. We also, although it is mentioned that there are schools forums and other bodies, we haven't actually said that we involve children, young people, those that are 16 plus in our consultation either. So to be helpful, because you've mentioned that obviously this is ongoing, this is a plan now for 5 years. So we would be able to review each year how we're actually doing, and to ask people, I think, which would be helpful, how we are going about it. I noticed that when the council tax bills came through, there is quite a substantial leaflet about what we're spending the money on. And I was wondering whether part of that could be, this is what we're spending this year, but a questionnaire be added, a paper questionnaire with that to say, how do you feel it's going? Could you give us an idea about how you want it to be for next year and ongoing? And in which case then you're going to have this feedback every year, which I think would be helpful for us all, because we all want to be able to have that sort of you know, the feedback that's coming forward. And that isn't political, that is just to be helpful. But I just wonder, I think we do need those paper consultations to go out. And even though I think Maury Pauls will say that on paper, it's possibly about 4% that you get back, but 4% of nearly 250,000 is 10,000, which is a lot more than 78. And of course, you can direct people to fill in a consultation online, or you can ask them to take the results to the completed forms to libraries or district housing offices. So there's a lot of ways that we could actually do it. So it's just a suggestion with thank you.
Councillor McEdrick.
Hi, yeah, just with reference again to the consultation, so Appendix B, you know, I have some concern about the accuracy of some of the information there. I'll raise a couple of specifics. So I know it's a draft, but if, for instance, in section 3.8.1, there are actually two different numbers quoted, 82% and 74%, for the number of people who agreed with aiming to make neighbourhood greening improvements. Now, that's a worthy aim, as has been stated, many of these things are worthy aims, but if we're basing our consultation on this, further on in the same section, 89% and 82% of people agreed with continuing to deliver a programme of wildflower planting and management. Again, I have no arguments with that as an agenda item, as something to do. I think it's great, but again, if we're going to do these consultations, can we just ensure that these little areas are not creeping in? Because it does then call into some question that there may be other areas in here that are not so obvious. Thank you.
Councillor Gibbard.
Thank you, President Member. I just wanted to comment, as it's a little bit disappointing to hear the onslaught of negativity towards this report, which I think is, you know, really emphasising the things that matter to us as a council, as a city. I think, and I'm sure as Councillor Hopkins will agree, except that the consultation on this might have had a limited feedback. However, it hasn't been created in a bubble. This has come out of work that we've been doing to engage with our communities, you know, all the time. So, for example, under the Safeguarding People from Harm aspect, it references our work on becoming a human rights city. That was a whole year of consultation in person, online, paper, speaking to schools, speaking to young people, speaking to our Aging Well network, speaking to our disability liaison group. So, you know, while the specifics figures on this may not be, you know, huge numbers, and definitely accept that criticism, I think it's, as I said, there's a lot more that goes into this on an ongoing basis. So apologies for that might be what you were going to say, Councillor Hopkins, but I don't want to leave that unsaid.
Leader, do you want to come in last? Because I got another one speaker and then.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Councillor Pugh.
Yeah, thanks. And look, you know, this is Councillor Hopkins' report, and like Louise, they don't want to put words in his mouth or anything. You know, it is a draft. It's broad, but and it'd be very easy to read and think, well, we've only spoken to you know, a fraction of the community. But like Councillor Gibbard just said, you know, most of us have been involved with working groups across the council and across the third sector, the schools, everywhere, you know, whether it be part of the corporate parenting, you'll see all the interactions that the teams have and councillors have with young people. There's lots of information being gathered over a long period of time. I agree that maybe it should be more obvious that that is happening, but it hasn't just been plucked out of thin air. You know, all these work, but even if you go to the employability hub, all the mentors, all the poverty team, the work with Matthew's House and homeless teams, there's so much information gathered, whether it be in paper form or you know, simple, easy sort of gathering of information, but it is broad and it is there. So this isn't just, you know, based on that. And I think the report does reflect that people most certainly want us to concentrate on poverty and tackling poverty and engaging communities. And these sort of things do come through. And yes, it would be lovely if we had an easy read to go online. I will add to that. So sorry, David, if I've said anything, but I think there's lots more in here than perhaps what comes across at first read.
Councillor Holly, do you want to come back in for the leader?
If we say something, it's not, you know, to say that it's all negative, that we're not being positive about it is wrong. Because we point out the fact that there is, in this report, never mind what other people are told, not all the other information you gather, in this report, we are told that 78 people answered it. Now, that's the point that we are bringing over here. That's what we are actually saying. Not about all the safeguarding issues, not about all the other issues, not about all the people, not all the other people we talk to. We're on about this report. And what we're saying is we must do better with consultation. Now, if you do better in other places, then why isn't it in the corporate plan report? It's not. It's this report we're talking about. So please, it's, you know, I accept the fact that we've highlighted the fact that only 78 people actually responded to a questionnaire. Much of this plan is nothing wrong with it at all. But to turn around and say we're all being negative and what have you is totally and utterly wrong. What we are pointing out to you is a simple fact that in this report, 78 people in this city responded to it. And that is a failing. It's a failing not just of you, it's a failing of the council. It's a failing of all of us. And we've got to do better. And that's what we're saying.
Councillor Holly, leader.
Okay, thank you. I'm grateful for the clarification because I think, you know, listening to what's been said, I haven't personally picked up any criticism of the content of the report or what is intended in the plan. I'm not seeing any of that. And of course, you know, I'm more than happy to pick up Councillor Rice's questions, and I'm sure Councillor Hopkins will answer the rest. I think you can't take this in isolation, and with the best will in the world, even Councillor Jones will know that when she presented corporate plans previously, they are really important documents for us as councillors, but they ain't going to enthuse most of the population of Swansea. A corporate plan is not something that does that. What does enthuse population of Swansea, of course, is an election. And what I would say is, if you trace this back, what we have in the corporate plan is based on the corporate priorities, and the corporate priorities are based on the manifesto commitments that we made as an administration last year, and we got overwhelmingly elected on that manifesto. So there was a big vote on this. There was a big set of judgments on this corporate plan, and that was the election last year. And as you see, we've got 45 Labour councillors as a result of that, intent on delivering this plan. But just to address some of the points Councillor Rice made, in terms of the investment zone, the answer to that one is simple: yes. What we're waiting on detail from UK government, but I've already had discussions with the vice chancellors of the universities in the area, because of course, from what we know of the UK government proposals, which are still limited at the moment, it needs to be a collaboration between an ambitious council, which we are, and an ambitious university, which we have. We are blessed with two in this city. In terms of the Shared Prosperity Fund, well, actually that process is created by the UK government. One of the criticisms of the process is it's far too complicated. And of course, a lot of the detail on the Shared Prosperity Fund was released very late in the day. The money and the detail was only made available just over a month ago. And I've got to pay tribute to Paul Relf and our officers for turning that around. We've now got to get £40 million out the door by December next year in order to make sure we don't have to hand any money back to the UK government, because we know where that leads. But the point is, let's get it on record now. The Tory government were very late allocating the money. They were incredibly late allocating the details of how the money could be used, which has left us with insufficient time to do this properly. Let's learn that lesson and let's make sure they are better at what they do their end before it all begins. In terms of transport and roads, he may have missed the fact that Cabinet agreed a £5 million programme of roads investment. There was no capital money from UK government in the autumn statement. There is a little bit of extra money apparently for potholes because the UK government itself accepts that it is significantly underinvested in roads, and the money that is collected by DVLA and other national bodies does not flow to this council in order or be spent on the roads because the UK government isn't organised that way. Now, if the UK government were prepared to hand over all the money it collects in road taxes to local authorities, we could do up every road to a fantastic level. It doesn't work like that, but again, we live in hope. And I can announce tonight as well, through the lobbying that Councillor Andrew Stevens has done with his officers, that we're able to actually bring forward part of the programme for roads resurfacing in 24-25 into this financial year. So more roads will be resurfaced more quickly. So I can give confirmation on that. And I'll leave Councillor Hopkins to respond to the rest of the report.
Sir Hopkins, please.
Yeah, look, I agree, 78% is poor, but as the leader said, we got elected on that. But I do think there is, we'll admit, there are rooms for improvement in any type of thing, but with any type of consultation. But I think we can get consultation fatigue. You are right. The document is very woolly, but it needs to be. Legally, it's got to be. It's got to be in that position where we have, set out these priorities going forward. I think the contents of the report is the most important thing. I do agree. It's not set in tablets of stone. It's a working document. It is the draft, and I think I'm quite proud of the contents of it. The consultation, no, I'm not. I will say I think it is difficult. With any consultation, you've got a very little, even internal consultation with their own staff is very poor. So there are ways of improving that. We work with the third sector on a regular basis. They look at these things. What more can we do? But yes, there is room for improvement. Look at that and take it forward. Some of the figures, obviously, the way they set out don't read right. But when you consider particularly with the way that the responses are so low, then they are slightly distorted when the numbers come back. But I will come back to you in the context of them numbers specifically. I don't have the information in front of me, but I will certainly. But I do agree, yes, there are. But getting people to respond after COVID and other things is very, very difficult. Most things we go out to consultation on, unless, and I'm not proposing we're going to, if you try closing the school or anything of that nature, then we get huge responses. So I take the negative, the amount of, I take the amount of people responding as a good response. They're not that worried about it. But I do agree, one more thing, if we can get an easy to read online, then I think that there should be as well. Thank you.
Okay, the report has been moved and seconded, please, and the recommendations are on page 16 and that it's recommended that the corporate plan 23-28 is adopted. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Okay, anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. We move on to the next item then, and that's the report of the Audit Wales Audit of Accounts report for the City and County of Swansea. And can I call on Derwyn Owen, please, from the Audit Wales to present the report?
Thank you, presiding member. Good evening, everybody. Yes, so my name is Derwyn Owen. I'm the Audit Director within Audit Wales. And I have the pleasure this evening of presenting to you the Audit of Accounts report, which summarises our main findings from our audit of your accounts for the 21-22 financial year. I should say that the same report was considered by your Governance and Audit Committee a couple of weeks ago. The key conclusion is that we intend to issue an unqualified audit opinion on your accounts. That is, in our opinion, your accounts do show a true and fair view of the financial transactions you've been involved with during the year and what your year-end balances are. So that is excellent news for the council. I can further say that the accounts provided for audit were of a good standard, but need to recognise that they were received some time after the required deadline. But I know that is something which the council is working hard on addressing for future years. It's also true to say that the sign-off date of all Welsh Council, if not UK Council accounts, has been delayed this year due to a technical accounting matter in relation to the valuation of infrastructure, which I don't intend to go into this evening unless members wish me to do so. That matter has taken some time to resolve, and therefore generally we are quite some months behind schedule in terms of signing off council accounts for this year. Finally, I wish to put on record my thanks to the Director of Finance and his staff for the way in which they've continued to cooperate with us and support us during our audit. It is very much appreciated. At which point I'll happily take any questions.
Thank you, Councillor Holly.
Thank you, President Member. It's just a simple question. On page 171, Appendix 3, we have the leasing, the council's leasing agreements. It's the sum of 200 and odd million, is it? 284 million. Was wondering if we could have a written reply to what properties we listed out on and add up to that figure. I don't obviously expect an answer today, but a written reply would be required. Thank you.
Councillor Holly. Councillor Rice.
I just wanted to thank you for your report and also to thank the work for our staff here in the finance department. They do a brilliant job. I just wanted to pick up the quick question about the technical issue that's delayed the publishing and stating of accounts this year. If there's some feedback that we could give nationally, is there a way in which we can, if this were to happen or raise again, try to exclude that in some kind of way and have a provisional statement of accounts looked at, because it's very much an informative state of play for any budget forming, and it's come after a budget's been set for this year. And I understand the background of that, but is there anything that the Welsh Audit Office can send back nationally to be able to help correct that for the future?
Thank you, Councillor. No, I hear the point. I think it is unfortunate that this issue has delayed audits across Wales during the year, and that does bump into the budget setting processes. So look, I do hope that this is a one-off rather than a regular event, but certainly to the extent it happens again, I think we can certainly take on board your feedback.
Thank you. Can I call on Mr. Ben Smith, please, if you could, any comments, please? Any technical?
Not on this item, presiding member. I'll give my technical advice on the next item when I ask you to receive the accounts. I would just like to thank Owen for his advice and equally recognise the difficult circumstances in which his audit colleagues have worked, but we have remained polite, professional and friendly at all times to get to an end product. But I'll give my technical advice on the next item, presiding member. Thank you.
And can I thank you, Mr. Owen, for your report. It does need a recommendation, and it's that the final letter of representation be approved and signed. So can I have a vote to show for, please? Okay, anybody against? And any abstentions? Okay, that's passed, unanimous. Thank you. We now move on to the next item, and that's item 10, and that's this. It's the statement of accounts, and I need to call on Councillor Lyndon Jones, please.
Yeah, Madam Presiding Officer, could I make a personal interest, give a personal interest on this item?
Thank you. Okay. Okay, can I call on Mr. Ben Smith then, please, to present the report? Thank you.
Thank you, presiding member. As others have already indicated, and Mr. Owen has referenced, I'm pleased to bring the statement accounts to you. I'm pleased to hear that the Auditor General intends to issue an unqualified opinion, but they are very late compared to our normal high standards. We normally finish draft accounts in May and take them forward for audit. It is a combination of the items that Mr. Owen has referred to in terms of technical matters on infrastructure assets, but you will recall that a year and a half ago when I stood up in this council chamber or virtual chamber, the other issue was we had to rework 20 years worth of technical reserve adjustments between two reserves that were utterly neutral, no effect on real world and public, but it was important that it was done to correct a long-standing issue to comply with proper accounting standards. So I equally do not want to be in a repeat position of this, but it must be recognised that my staff, these are the accounts in the midst of COVID, who reworked over 20 years worth of accounts to get to an end product. And before I forget, I would wish to recognise in particular, there's always a danger when I recognise staff, but I pay tribute to Amanda Thomas, my technical accountant, who pulls the accounts together and stuck with it. Liz Rees, Elizabeth Rees, who did all the asset rework for us. And sandwiched between the two, Jane James, who is another one of those officers who's retiring after an enormously long period of service, who's the capital accountant. They stuck to it and worked through it all the way through. Look, it is very late in the day, but the most important thing is that they are unqualified. The next most important thing is that they are at least being agreed before we start next year's closure, which starts tomorrow. That was Mr. Owen is aware that that was my minimum sufficing requirement in terms of at least having certainty. And as he has referenced, look, Wales is in a better position than England, but across England and Wales, you're talking about 16% of accounts signed off. There is a fundamental problem in the audit and local government market at the moment. We will look to do better. We won't have to do 20 years worth of rework for a neutral effect, but we have still got those ongoing issues in terms of those technical matters. Look, the accounts are themselves incredibly long, and every year my institute says they're going to make them shorter, and they always end up being invariably longer. The recommendation in front of you is for one recommendation to approve the accounts. You've listened to the advice from the Auditor General's representative. They are unqualified. It is a very clear position. They have gone through the audit committee. They are entirely consistent with the outturn that you received what feels like a lifetime ago. I do not intend to draw your attention to the items in the accounts other than to draw your attention to the executive summary, which does indicate that the big messages were you underspent, you added massively to reserves, bolstered your balance sheet, and that is what gives you the financial strength to see yourself through the current funding crisis and cost of living crisis that's affecting the whole of the public sector. And I think those are the important parts. As Mr. Owen and yourself have referenced, there is the model letter that the Auditor General requires. I will be signing that and appending your signature with your permission, presiding member, for the letter of representation, and that will go off imminently. I will also make arrangements for the 4 signatures to be peppered through the statement of accounts. They will be exchanged with the Auditor General's representative, and the Auditor General is intending to sign them off tomorrow. And we can put 21-22 to bed, and tomorrow we can start putting 22-23 to bed. I don't want to curtail debate or questioning if there are questions, but given these have been subject to review once already by the Audit Committee and our auditors, I have nothing further to add unless there are any specific matters that that members wish to ask of me. Thank you, Presiding Member. I'll hand back, see if there are any technical questions, but would otherwise look for members to move and second the report for approval. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Leader.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Can I also add my thanks to both Mr. Owen and the audit team and Mr. Smith and all of his finance team for the work they've done. As Mr. Smith alluded to, going back through 20 years of accounts has been a huge task, but I'm pleased to see that we've got through that and that we have an unqualified position for the council. So with that, I'll formally move the report.
Can I have a seconder, please? Oh, sorry,
Again, it's congratulations to everyone involved. You know, it's an enormous task that was undertaken, and the speed it was done and the accuracy it was done is to be complimented to everyone. And I have no problem in seconding the report.
Okay, this will be moved and seconded, so I need to go to the recommendations, which is on page 175, and that is recommended that the council approves the 21-22 statement of accounts attached to Appendix A. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Okay, anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved and is approved unanimously. Thank you. We next moved on to the next item, and that's item 11. And excuse me, and that's the school admission arrangements for 24-25. And I'd like to call on Mr. Robert Smith, Cabinet Member.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This report outlines the admission arrangements for each category of school in Swansea. It operates how the system will operate and the timescale to which we will operate. So I would formally move the report.
Yeah. Can I have a seconder, please? Thank you. Any questions? Anybody? No. Okay, there are a number of recommendations and they're on page 385. It's the proposed admission arrangements for 24-25 for nursery as set at Appendix A are approved. That the proposed admission arrangements for 24-25 for reception as set out in Appendix B are approved. Sorry. Oh, sorry, Lyndon, I didn't see your hand. You need to come in.
I was told I had to declare an interest, a personal interest in this as well. So I was just putting my hand up for that, Presiding Member.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay. Number 3 was the proposed admission arrangements for 24-25 for year 7 as set out in Appendix C are approved. Number 4 is the proposed admission arrangements for 24-25 for in-year transfers as set out in Appendix D are approved. Item 5 is the proposed admission arrangements criteria for entry for 24-25 for 6 forms set in Appendix E are approved. Number 6 is the schedule events for the primary and secondary at Appendix F is approved. And number 7 is the admission numbers for primary and secondary schools are noted as set out in Appendix G. So can I have a show of hands for the report, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's moved and it's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is the Swansea Public Service Boards, and it's to call on Andrew Lewis. Councillor Andrew Lewis, please.
Thank you, Presiding Member. I will try and be brief, but there are some points that I feel that I should need to highlight. The Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales 2015 Act sets out a wellbeing duty to be met by individual public bodies such as Swansea Council. Swansea Council are one of the 4 statutory partners of the Public Service Board, and it now has to be approved by each statutory member's decision-making body before publication on the 4th of May 2023, which is why it's here in draft form to be hopefully approved this evening and has been to the other bodies and has been accepted and approved by them. The plan is primarily driven by matters raised in the Assessment of Local Wellbeing 2022. It takes into account recommendations made by the Future Generations Report, Welsh Government's Future Trends Report, and we worked closely with West Glamorgan Regional Partnership Board, and they developed the population assessment and area plan draft. In addition, Swansea PSB has worked really closely with Neitha Batalbot's PSB throughout this process. The involvement process took into account both the national principles of public engagement in Wales and children and young people's participation standards. This placed an emphasis on involvement with citizens, partners, and staff and leaders, and the involvement process can be summarised in the diagram at the top of page 420. Some of the activities led by Swansea Council included an online survey, internal and external promotion of engagement opportunities, generating evening post and intranet coverage, social media campaign, drop-ins at libraries and events, and engagement with the public, for example, via a bilingual flying start setting, Ageing Well steering group, and the Waterfront Museum's Wellbeing Fair. The plan was also promoted at the Human Rights City launch and via an activity at the Children's Rights Day celebration. An easy read version of the plan and engagement with young people and the neurodiversity and additional needs was also included. The 3-month engagement period involved hundreds of people across the diversity of Swansea's community, and the feedback was integrated into the plan's development and focused on ideas which will be integrated into the final plan. We'll also be introducing a video format as well as an easy read. So legal implications, the Public Service Board is required to prepare and publish a local wellbeing plan. The first plan must be published by 4th of May, and section 443 in brackets 5 of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015 provides that the function of approving the local wellbeing plan rests with the full council. The plan is there in appendices. I don't intend to go through the plan in detail, but I will say and place on my records thanks to Ness Young, to Richard Rowlands, to Susie Richards, and to Rhian Miller for their involvement in bringing this plan together. There's been a huge amount of work involved from the team to get us to this point. And I will say with confidence, which I know some members of the scrutiny committee, I repeat my comments there, that this plan, I have confidence, has subgroups with a very much task-focused, outcome-focused approach in comparison, not to criticise previous plans, but this is far more targeted, and there are leads from all the 4 statutory partners on those subgroups. So I'm happy to take any questions, Chair, but actually very proud of the plan that we have before us today and happy to move.
Can I have a seconder first, please? Thank you, Councillor Sir.
Thank you, Chair. Can I very much welcome this plan? I think obviously the Scrutiny Programme Committee will be looking at it in some more detail. I think it's a very high level plan, and I very much welcome the level of consultation which has been outlined by the Cabinet member in reaching this plan. I think it might be a good example for the Council to follow in terms of its own corporate plan, in terms of engaging a lot more people. My question really is around where we go from here. Once this is adopted in May, will there then be a detailed action plan with set targets which we can then properly scrutinise? I think we've been asking for this for some time, and I know we've been working towards it, but I think it's important that having set out all these objectives, we're then able to measure how we achieve them and where we're falling down, where we're doing well, so that we can actually make sure that the objectives set out in this plan are delivered as they are intended to. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you, Presiding Member. And if I can respond to that, firstly, I wouldn't criticise the engagement programme and the way forward for the corporate plan. We're talking about the same team who planned the engagement for the wellbeing plan as well. So if you look in the corporate plan, you will see, I believe it's page 26 off the top of my head, that it actually sets out the groups that we're engaged with in the corporate plan. So I won't sit here and criticise that approach. Yes, as Councillor Hopkins said, you know, the small amount of responses was disappointing. But if you look at the amount of actual written responses for the Public Service Board Wellbeing Plan, we didn't have a high amount, but we did have hundreds of contributions that we took into account. So I think there's a distinction between people actually submitting formally their views and actually being involved in formulating the plan, which I'm really proud to say that, you know, there was a lot of involvement in this. I'm very happy, as I pledged at scrutiny, to give further detail about the action plan, looking at the outcomes. I know scrutiny have been asking for this for a number of years, and I'm pleased to say we are now in a position where we are very outcome focused and target focused, and we will bring that to scrutiny to future meetings. But this is a living document, and we will keep improving as we proceed and make sure that we reach those targets and outcomes, but clearly outline them and communicate them to scrutiny, because I know it's an area of interest for them.
Councillor Alison Pugh.
Thanks, Presiding Member. Yeah, just to, you know, say welcome this report. It's a thorough report, well written, you know, and we all know Swansea is a, you know, vibrant, welcoming city. We proudly say that. We proudly share all the values and work with the City of Sanctuary and many other different organisations to promote our city and to welcome people here. And the PSB in just, this is a huge report, you can't cover it all. It has collaborated well, it has gathered this information well. And even if you just focus on, say, one of the, Councillor Lewis just spoke about different work streams, and, you know, I was involved with the critical incident group of High Street, you know, and so much good work has come from there. And the partnership work has been brilliant. We now have a Poverty Truth Commission. We have a Drug Use Commission. You know, we have proactively tried to engage people in High Street. We've strengthened the barracks there, our community safety, and many officers, housing officers, everybody have worked together to try and improve and make the area safer for residents. We're investing in the shops at the top of High Street to allow this work to continue and to you know, encourage people to seek help and to seek employment and everything. And the PSB, you know, has come into its own with this really, and pull in the statutory organisations and everything together. So I welcome the report. It's hard to comment, it's so huge on there, so I've only just taken one bit of it. But yeah, so if I can just say pass my thanks to the officers, Councillor Lewis, will be very grateful.
Thank you, Councillor Pugh. Councillor Mary Jones.
Thank you very much, Presiding Member. I think my comment is going to be, we've got too many plans because our own corporate plan has got a lot of reference in it about well-being, which it had to. And I know I chaired the Scrutiny Programme Board, so I also chaired the Public Service Board, Scrutiny Board, and it was very difficult to get our partners to engage with us. And really what the Public Service Board local wellbeing plan seems to be about is just working with our partners, even though we're referencing them in our corporate plan. So you've got the same officers as you just said, Councillor Lewis. I know it's not in your gift to remove one of them, but really I think we're duplicating an awful lot of work because a lot of the things we're saying in the same way.
Okay, Andrea.
Thank you. Yeah, if I can respond to that, I think I did set out clearly in my remarks about the report. This is a statutory duty upon us. It's not something that's within our gift to do or not to do. And actually, it's complementary of the corporate plan. And I think the corporate plan is more centred around what we do as a council, as a local authority. This is about our strong network and strong partnerships, not just with the four statutory partners that we are one of, but actually the wider PSB in terms of the third sector, housing associations, the police crime commissioner. You know, the list is long. And when we have those wider partnership meetings, you know, we do come together to talk about issues, and we also work across our boundaries with our neighbouring authority, with Neath and Talbot as well. So I do feel, Chair, that this does add value. It's not about repetition. It's not about duplication. This adds value in its own rights. But again, is a statutory duty upon us anyway, which we have to meet.
Okay, the report has been moved and seconded, please. So the recommendations are on page 418, and it's recommended that the council approves the Swansea Public Service Board local Wellbeing Plan. So can I have a show of hands for, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved unanimously. Thank you. We'll move on to the next item then, please, and that's the appointment of a lay member to the Governance and Audit Committee. And can I call on Tracy Meredith, please?
I have nothing to add to the report. The recommendation is set out at page 470. I would just ask that it's moved and seconded, please.
Okay, can I have a mover?
Chair, happy to move.
Happy to second.
It's been moved and seconded, and the recommendations are on page 470. There's two recommendations, is that David Roberts is appointed as lay member of the Governance and Audit Committee, and that the term of office will be 5 years from the 1st of April 23 to the 31st of March 2028. So I can have a show of hands for, please. Okay, anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved unanimously. Thank you. The next item is the nomination for Lord Mayor and Deputy Lord Mayor for elect for 23-24. And can I call on Mr. Hugh Evans, please?
Thank you, Presiding Member. Let me just give the people a moment to withdraw.
Chair, if I may, I have sought advice from the legal officer around any declaration I may have on this one or interest, sorry, and I've had advice from the officer, from the legal officer, that I don't have an interest, even though I'm named in the report.
Thank you, Leader. I have nothing to add to the report. Straightforward and under our policy.
Okay, can I have somebody move in second? Councillor Holly, Councillor Jones. Okay. Can I have a show of hands for, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's voted. Thank you very much. The next item is the timing of the council meetings for a survey and council bodies diary for 23-24. Can I again call Mr. Hugh Evans, please?
Sorry.
Oh, sorry, I had to wait for everybody.
That's all right.
Apologies.
No, they're all back. That's fine. Thank you, everybody. I'll try and keep this one brief. As Head of Democratic Services, I have a legal duty to carry out a council meetings survey at least once every council term. Most councils in Wales tend to do that survey immediately following a local government election, hence that had been done in 2022. I deliberately delay it in Swansea to allow the incoming councillors an opportunity to know what the role is about before they're actually casting a vote on the survey. So it's quite deliberate that I delay it in that sense. And if you recall, you give me permission to delay it formally as well. The survey has been carried out. The responses are outlined. And it's fair to say there is no perfect answer. So with that in mind, we have drafted a council body's diary for 23-24. It's based along the same premise as is currently, with meetings either late-ish in the afternoon, which tends to work well. And of course, with the ability for people to join via Teams, via remotely, that has certainly benefited people as well. With that in mind, I ask you to move in second and vote on my report.
Chair, happy to move.
Okay.
Happy to
Did
second.
you wish to speak, or we're just moving the post? Thank you. Okay, so can I have a show of hands for, please? Anybody against? Any abstentions? That's an abstention, yeah? Thank you. Okay. Move on to the next item then, and that's amendments to the council's constitution, the constitution working group terms of reference and membership and financial procedure rules. Again, I'd like to call on Mr. Hugh Evans. Thank you.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This report looks to make a few minor amendments to the Constitution. It has been through the Constitution Working Group and it had a full approval there, so I've nothing further to add to the report.
Chair, happy to move the report.
Thank you. Can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Holly.
Just second.
Okay, we move to the vote then, please, so we can have a vote for. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved then. Thank you. The next we have the review of the communities, and again, it's Mr. Evans.
Thank you, Presiding Member. This report on behalf of the returning officer. The council has a duty once every 10 years to review its communities. That is the community, pardon me, the community and town councils within the area. To simplify it, because it is quite a difficult task, and we want to ensure that we do full consultation and use the expertise available to do it. I am recommending here that instead of doing a section 25 review, which we're obligated to do, we do a section 26 review, which is exactly the same thing, but the Local Boundary Commission for Wales does it on our behalf. They in turn will then consult with all the relevant stakeholders, including yourselves, including community town councils, and that process will take about 12 to 15 months and will commence around October this year. I have nothing further to add to the report.
Somebody to propose it, please.
Chair, again, happy to move.
Happy to second.
Thank you. Okay, we move to the vote. Everybody for? Anybody against? Any abstentions? Okay, that's moved then. Thank you. We'll now move on to councillors' questions. This question is from Councillor Paxton Hood-Williams.
Thank you, Madam Presiding Member. Obviously, from what has been said tonight already and what's in the answer to various questions, we're not going to get any information tonight, so no supplementary.
Councillor Rice.
Just to follow on a similar theme, can the Cabinet member commit to releasing information at the very time that it's able to be released following discussions regards the airport? And just another quick supplementary to that is, does the Cabinet member want the airport to remain operational and open going forward?
Can I repeat my commitment? It is, well, I hope that we can continue to keep the airport up and running as long as we possibly can. That is my ambition. And what I can give a commitment, once we legally able to, right, then I will make a public or bring something back, certainly the Cabinet, and if need be, bring something back to this council. But I would not want to delay this process any longer than the legal process takes us. So to give that commitment.
Councillor McGettrick.
You've probably seen the Wales Online articles describing it, that Swansea Council has launched a review of Swansea Airport. Can I just confirm with you that you have in fact launched a review of Swansea Airport as per that headline? And secondly, this is just with safety hat on. I do a lot of work with safety, and I'm sure that the Civil Aviation Authority do not revoke the licence as the first port of call. So this has happened several times now. Can I ask firstly that you make sure that safety is paramount? If something goes wrong with a plane, people are likely to die or get seriously injured. And secondly, if we are being blocked for legal reasons and there are serious safety failures, can we have some sort of review as to how we cannot terminate you're obviously privy to information we're not, but please can we make sure that we can actually terminate contracts, etc., or licenses if there are serious safety failures? Thank you.
Can I just remind, the legal responsibility of the safety of that airport remains with the leaseholder. I think it's really important we do that. What we have done previously, when the CAA license got removed, we put resources and time and effort into working with that leaseholder. But predominantly, it must remain the leaseholder's responsibility. What I will say, the legal process is ongoing. We are working with we are working with our legal team at this particular time, reviewing all avenues attached to the CAA license being withdrawn. There is a process which I did mention during question time. I believe that the leaseholder at this present time is in discussion with the CAA at this particular time. We are waiting for that to finish at this, as well as part of our legal process.
Councillor Hopkins. Question 2 is from Councillor Peter May. Thank you.
Thank you. Can the cabinet member give a commitment that there are no plans to either sell St Helens or build on it, please?
No. How can I give that commitment? Because I want to see first-class sport be retained in Swansea. I want to see improvements to the St Helens ground. You can't improve it unless you actually build on it. You might want to build a better stand, better training facilities. So to give an assurance that we can't build on it would be irresponsible of me, and I'm not sure it's what the public of Swansea would want to hear. The only commitment I would make is that we are working with people to ensure that first-class sports facilities remain and enhanced in Swansea.
Thank you, RFD. Councillor.
In that case, can I reiterate my question then? Can the cabinet member give a commitment that he won't build on St Helens to any detriment of sporting facilities on that venue?
I've already given a commitment to saying that we will improve sporting facilities in Swansea. Therefore, that might mean building on that. We are in talks with several bodies for improvement. I can't go into any further detail than that, and you had the answers in the question, whereas regards cricket, where Glamorgan decided to take cricket to Cardiff. What we want to do is to make sure we get first-class sporting facilities in Swansea.
I'm sorry, but the cabinet member still hasn't answered my question. He's referring to venues in Swansea. I'm asking about St Helens. Could he please answer the question regarding St Helens, please?
All my answers are regarding St Helens. You may not like the answer. That's the answer you've got.
Councillor Rice.
Final question from me to the cabinet member as well is, can you give a commitment to anybody who you transfer it to will use it for similar or very similar purposes?
We want to see first-class sporting facilities, whether that is football, rugby, cricket, netball. It could be a range of sporting facilities, but we will enhance the sporting facilities. What is not possible is just to have a ground of that size just being left and not improving them.
Councillor Connor.
Just wondering, do you have any one specific sport in mind? Football, for example?
It'd be several sports.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, the next question is from Councillor Richard Lewis. Scott, thank you. Question 4, Councillor Will Thomas. Any supplementaries? No, thank you. Question 5 is Councillor Peter May. Stuart Rice, Councillor Rice.
Thank you for your answer. Just as a follow-up, I take it obviously out of the 17, you're planning to close some of those libraries. Is that the case?
Councillor Andrew Williams, can I bring you in, please?
Thanks, Chair. Could the cabinet member tell us when the last library was closed down in Swansea, please?
Who's responding? Is it Culture and Equality? Is it Elliot?
Thank you, Presiding Member. I think as the question outlines, there are no current plans to close any of the libraries, but as the medium-term financial plans has identified savings, it's important for us to look at how we deliver library service in the future. Now, obviously, the start of that is looking at the central library and how it moves into the new community hub building and how we can transfer that model across to other libraries. So you know, that there are no current plans to close libraries, and that's something that will be reviewed. In response to Councillor Williams's question, well, of course, as the leader referenced in the budget meeting, the last library that's closed was Bryn Mill Library in 2010. And I believe members who asked the question were part of the administration that closed that line.
Okay, the next question is from councillor. Oh, sorry.
So just to confirm that, can you rule out any closures for Swansea libraries? Just to confirm, that's a no.
As I said in the answer, there are currently no plans to close any libraries.
Okay, the next question is from councillor Fitzgerald or Sam Bennett or Mark Tryon.
Yes.
Councillor Fitzgerald online. Thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes. And I thank the Cabinet Member for the answer to this question. I do have a question that I want to ask, but I think it is quite technical. And I would be happy to submit it in writing if that would be okay. It relates to the annual monitoring report and a bit of a conflict with some of the figures. So I think it would be sensible to submit it in writing. Is that okay, Cabinet Member?
Yeah, what I would say, I think Councillor Chris Hawley has already sent me that question, and I will give a commitment that I will give that commitment. I will respond in writing.
Thank you very much. The one thing that I think you could confirm, I'm assuming that none of the student accommodation is included in the figures for housing completions. Is that correct?
I believe so. Yes, that is correct. To my best knowledge, it is.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, councillor Fitzgerald. The next question is from councillor Francesca O'Brien. No supplementaries, thank you. The next question is from councillors Leslie Walton.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask a supplement or put a question to the Cabinet Member. Would she not agree that, considering the very difficult period a couple of years ago, that the actual progress being made that should be applauded, and we should certainly be thanking both our staff and the health staff for making these improvements?
Yes, thanks, Councillor Walton. Yeah, obviously we have to bring some difficult reports around social services, like the market stability report and things like that. And we are aware it's very difficult circumstances in terms of recruitment of staff and complexity of need. So it is really nice to be able to celebrate some of the good stuff that we're doing. And I think the work we're doing around reablement and ensuring that people can go home from hospital with reduced or no care at all is really to be applauded. And it's definitely the approach that we should be pursuing, working in partnership with the health board. So definitely put on record my thanks to our fantastic staff.
That's a good bit. The next is from councillors Wendy Fitzgerald. You're on mute, councillor Fitzgerald, sorry.
Sorry, I have some problems with my mute. I don't know why. Sorry about that, Chair. Yes, thank you, Cabinet Member, for the answer to the question. And I'm very pleased that there has been now some extensive litter picking taking place. The one thing that I would like some clarification on, it says that there's going to be now, I think the word is, regular cleansing will again be undertaken. I wonder if you could clarify what is meant by regular. I mean, regular could mean once a week, once a month, once every 2 months, even once a year, which would be a real disaster. Is there any figure in mind, say for the A483, for example? Thank you.
Councillor Anson.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Personally, I think it's once every 3 months. But can I just say, I am really a bit disappointed. All the time our operators were out there, within a matter of a couple of hours, somebody come and dumped a lot of rubble. Now, that can't be kept clean and tidy when we've got irresponsible people out there doing this. And surely somebody must have seen, because they were in building rubble bags. But I will get back to you on this, Councillor Fitzgerald, on the actual timings and how often they're going to be doing them. I'll give it to you in writing.
Thank you very much. And I totally agree. the roads are cleaned, and then within a matter of days, I'm afraid there is litter back again. I don't know what it is. Perhaps we need to have a major campaign to try to persuade people not to throw things out of their car windows or even from the backs of their car. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. The next question is from, Mike White. Councillor White, thank you.
Supplementary question and clarification of the cabinet member in regards to the minority roads, which are mainly dual carriageways, that the council has to put proper planning and procedures in place before this and advertise the work before this work can be carried out. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor White. Yes, there is, for safety of our operatives, we have got to notify the general not the general public, but the general people that use their cars, that there will be enforced road lane closures to keep our operatives safe and whilst they are doing the work. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from Councillor Francesca O'Brien. Sorry, no supplementaries. Okay, that's the end of the council's questions. Before we move to no motion, I'm going to call for a comfort break. Okay, so I'll just give you 10 minutes. Okay, thank you.